I'm Evan, and this is Magnolias in Sunlight, and today is day 15 of DIY or Die, my series where we make a Halloween-themed DIY project every day in the month of October. And we are basically halfway through, which is absolutely crazy. But today we are going to make something a little crazy. In my intro video, which I posted on September 30th, which seems like so long ago, I talked about all of the themes that I had done research for to make this series. And one of those themes was the spooky garden. So very outdoorsy, very like haunted forest floor kind of vibes. And I kept coming across mushrooms, moths and butterflies, and snails. So we've done the butterflies, we've done the mushrooms, so we gotta throw in a snail. I kept finding these, and they kind of irk me just a little bit because skeletons and snails, like snails don't have skeletons. They don't go together. But what I did think was clever was the head, the skeleton head, as the snail shell. So I maybe made one out of felt with a craft store skeleton head. And I didn't just make one, I maybe made two, because there's two sizes of skeleton heads. This was technically my prototype. I made a paper prototype, and then I made this one, and then this is the one I'm going to show you how to do step by step. It looks complicated. I swear it is a very easy project, but I'm really excited. They're really cute, and they totally fit that spooky garden theme. So let's dive in, and I'm going to show you how to make your very own spooky snail. So for this project, you're going to need some felt in two colors. These are the colors that I've chosen, and then some coordinating thread. I'm just using embroidery thread, or embroidery, it's a word for it, floss, embroidery floss. Obviously a needle, some stuffing to stuff our snail, and then optional, but I think it adds a lot of fun, some little beads. So on our example, I gave him little eyes, and then we gave him some stripes up and down his front. So it just adds a little something. Okay, so we have our pattern pieces from the tiny version. And then we I just want to scale these up to fit this skull. So like, obviously that doesn't work. So we probably need to like double this. And then the bottom and the top you can kind of play with. I cut out shapes that were about right. I also made a paper version. I'll show you a video of that to see like if this would actually work. And once the paper one worked, I was like, okay, we should be good. And the way I did this yesterday when I made my toy one, or my fake one, was that I kind of actually laid the skull and then kind of traced my endpoints. So like, I think like the tail needs to go to about here, and then we'll go up, and then probably go up higher, and that will be its little head, and then it comes back down to the mouth. So I can't be right on top of this because you guys are there. And then I'm gonna pull this one out too and kind of see, like this goes pretty far back. So maybe that. And then I'm gonna take this off and then finesse. Okay, so I'm just playing with things, but I put this in and I think that scale is correct. That means that this piece that I just cut out for the bottom is far too short. This needs to be about yay long, much longer. And the way I did that, I figured that out, was that I started here at that point and then just kind of matched the paper up all the way down, because you have to account for, oh my goodness, this curve and then this curve. And so you can see that we're about that short. So I'm going to use the scrap paper from where I cut this out and quite literally just add on to this. Can you hold that up? Thank you. So go to about here. Okay, so here are our pattern pieces. This is your bottom. You're gonna need to cut one of these. So times one, top times one, and I'm just gonna even that out. I know it's not a perfect tape job. And then you need 2 of these. And then we are also going to cut out the antenna, but I found that rather than having them connected here, the ones on our example, these are wired so you can move them around, which I think is really cool. And I needed them to be separate, so we're just going to free cut those when we get to that point instead of having them here. But you will need to cut 4 antenna out. So let's start cutting the felt. And then I should mention that we are cutting our bottom piece out of a contrasting felt. You don't have to, it could all be the same color, but I just thought it looked cute having the lighter color underneath. So I'm glad I have this little example that I can keep showing you guys. But yeah, so we're gonna do the same thing and then we'll start assembling with some hot glue. We do sew this eventually, but I find to get it to hold, especially since just decor, step 1 is hot glue. While the hot glue heats up, I almost forgot to cut our little antennae out. So I'm taking the scraps from in between the pieces. You know I love to use a felt scrap if you watched my day 1 video. And I'm just gonna go up and make like a round, like a teardrop shape. And then back down. I'm making these kind of chunky and you'll see why when we wire them. I want them to cover the wire. It was a little more difficult on the smaller one. I made them a little too thin, so I learned from that mistake. Okay, so I think I mentioned in the butterfly video that I was keeping all of this spare wire that I was using or that I pulled off of the butterflies because it's really useful and I could use it for another project. Well, here we are. I know it sounds like hoarding when people say that they're like gonna hold on to scraps, but I swear they always, 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 always come in handy. So I'm gonna try and use this one piece. I'm gonna see if it's actually long enough to do what I want to do. Yeah, it should be okay. I'm gonna cut that in half, and then that's how we are going to make these eyes wired. We're gonna use a little piece of scrap wire, and then we're gonna put a line of hot glue down the middle of the bottom one. Put the wire in with some of it hanging out the bottom. Ideally, I would use a longer piece here, but oh, that was too much. That was way too much glue. Let's try and pull that down. Okay, and then we put this piece right on top. And then sandwich the sides shut. We are gonna sew and we're gonna top stitch all of this. So if you can see at all, that will go away. All right, and then we're gonna clean up all the glue, obviously. And this looks like a little Shrek ear, but it is wired. You can move it around and adjust it. And it's gonna be a cute little eye for our snail. Okay, so now that our antennas are in place, we're going to take this is the inside. You can tell where your pen marks are. Obviously you wanna hide that. And then you're gonna place the eye. And you're gonna do that on both sides. Oh no. I just realized I cut them out the same direction. Okay, so then we're going to take our other snail, line up the face, place the eye so that it's right across, and then fold this down, and then we're gonna add some glue. I already did this. You can see the leftover glue from when I just did this, but I forgot to film it, so we're redoing it for you. And then fold it down, make sure it's stuck. So while this one dries, we're gonna take our top piece, and with the marker or the pen side down, match your pen lines basically all the way around so that they're hidden. But we're going to glue our seam in, and that's really just to hold it in place, and then we're gonna top stitch it. So we're gonna glue about 1/8 of an inch in, and then we'll have kind of like this. And then we can top stitch that to make it look pretty. But this is just going to ensure that everything is the right shape. And while I wouldn't do this with like stuffed animals or something that you wanted to give as a gift, some silly little decor, I think this, A, it holds better. A top stitch is a pretty light stitch. But B, it just really ensures that all of your pieces are where you want them to be before you start sewing. So we're gonna match up right there at that nose point. This is the hardest part to get right. Line up your edges, and we're just gonna line the edges the whole way. But make sure here that you're not gluing both sides down, because we need to line up this edge with this piece. It gets easier as this widens out. And then we're gonna sandwich our little eye in there, which is why we did that first. And again, keep your glue line low. And then line up your edge. It's weird because you're like lining up something that has movement, because we're like going down the side of, or down the neck. And so you kind of have to force it a little bit, but I swear once it pops out, see, then you get your 3D shape. And then that's our seam. And then we can easily stitch up here without hitting any glue, and it's held in place while we stitch it. And then we just keep going. All the way down the neck, line up your edges. Don't pull on your felt too hard, because felt will stretch and then you'll be like, what happened? These pieces were the same shape and now they're not. And now this basically is just a straight line all the way down the back. The neck is the harder part. But see, now we have a little face. This will tack down with our stitch. And then I kind of like that it ruffles like this. I think it looks cool because like on a snail, they have like those, I don't know, especially on the bottom. But if it's too ruffly, you can trim this with your sewing scissors. You can trim this up and make the line better at this point, because you're already tacked down. So you can kind of play with it as much as you want. This is where you get to like zhuzh and fix and be really like intentional about all of the rest of your lines before you sew them. Once you top stitch them, you're kind of, those pieces are pretty locked in there. All the way to the tail. And again, make sure that you don't glue down the whole tail flat, because we need this piece to attach to this piece. So now we're going to do the other side, and then we'll put the bottom in. So we have our inside piece. And again, we're going to, the more fabric you're working with, the more challenging this gets. I will give you that. line up the head, and then fold this piece out of the way. I have the neck corner basically pinched in my hand here. And then I'm gonna fold this out of the way, put a bead of glue up here on the head. I go a little closer to the edge. Make sure we don't glue down this side. We're just gluing down this top piece right on the edge, like so. It's hard to do when I can't look straight down on it because you guys are looking straight down on it. And then again, right over our antenna. And then line up our edge pieces. It's funny when you're filming crafts like this, usually I would be like right up next to my body, but instead I'm about a foot away, so that the camera has the best angle of what I'm doing, which makes my job a tad bit harder. But see, now you can see how the head is forming. We have our, and then we'll stuff it. So this is the top, and then we'll do the same thing on the bottom to finish that out. And again, this isn't glued down, but that will all be stitched together like that and kind of close it up. So it's looking exactly the way I want it to at this point. This is something that I completely invented in my head and I didn't know if I could do it, which is why I did the practice one. And it's always nice when things actually work. On the little one, I sent a picture to my best friend who's seen the sketch that I did, and thought it was a really cute idea. And so he knew this was coming, but I sent him the glued together small version. It hadn't even been stitched yet. And I was like, oh my God, it worked. So now we do the bottom. This is the inside of our snail. Oh, that's scrap. I was like, what is that? And this is the outside of our snail. So now we're gonna start at the top again. Pen marks inside. Always remember to do your pen marks inside. And then I, on the practice one, did a dollop of glue here and I closed the face. And I just found that that, again, made it easier when I'm placing all of this and when I'm sewing it to have that already tacked together right there. And then this piece slots right in here. So we're gonna follow that same step we just did, and then I'll come back when we start. Oh, also don't glue. So I'm gonna do this same step all the way down until we get to the bottom where it's open here, and we're gonna leave about this much unglued, and I'll show you that in a second. Okay guys, see, here's our little bottom all put together, and here is our snail. Isn't it cute? He's basically a cube. But now you will see, we can shove him, I did this a couple times. He goes in here. Look how cute. So we'll take that out, and remember you left a flap open. So we're gonna take our pillow stuffing and just start filling our snail. And you want this to be pretty full. This isn't like a let's save pillow stuffing project. This is, you want it to be pretty sturdy, to the point that I even considered when I was designing this to put like rice bags in the bottom, because I was afraid it would like be too heavy to hold this up. But in the prototype stage, it seemed like it was going to be totally fine. All the way up into the face. Okay, so this is very stuffed, and we have this flap. So I want to keep being able to fill it as I go. So I'm just going to put a bead of hot glue and kind of close the gap a little bit. and then stuff until it's all the way sealed. Except for the point, this bit, I'm just gonna sew. Okay, so again, could this be our finished product? Yep, it could. But what I'm going to do now is take my needle and thread, and I'm going to do a top stitch. So let me grab my thread and I will show you the first couple, and then I'm gonna go watch a movie while I finish it because it's going to take a bit. This one took the better part of my football game to do. I mean, I was distracted because I was watching college football, but I think this one obviously is a little more surface space. So the embroidery floss comes with 6 strands. I have cut that down to 3 strands, and I feel like that's enough that it shows up on the felt, but it's not like too chunky. And then we're not gonna judge my stitches on this little guy. I was distracted watching college football, like I said. It was a stressful game. So this isn't the best job. I'm going to take my time on this one and hopefully have a little more finesse. But the point of this clip is we're gonna start down here. You go under, trying to keep this spacing and distance from the edge the same, and then pull through. Take your time so your stitches look nice and they're all the way around. So you're gonna go all the way around the bottom. You're gonna go up around the face, making sure you tack your corners in really well. You're gonna go to this corner. You're gonna make an extra stitch here just to be safe, and then up around the eye, an extra stitch here in the corner, all the way back down this side to the tail. You're gonna sew the tail shut on this side. And then once the tail is sewn shut, you're gonna come out here and do the same thing all the way around the bottom, all the way around the face, tack all your sides in, make sure this is all clean and sewn shut, because right now it's not glued totally shut. Up around the face, extra stitch here, around the eye, extra stitch here, all the way down, and then back to the tail where you're making sure that all of this is fully closed. Tie it off, and then we can get to the fun beading part. So I'll come back to you once I have fully stitched this. So we have the same thread that we've been using, and I'm going to go right through here. And then I'm gonna put my bead onto my needle and then go back right under, kind of making a loop. And that will loop our bead into place and cover up that knot. Additionally, you could do this ahead of time so all of this is on the inside, but I didn't do that. And then we're just gonna tie a knot. And then trim up all of our excess because obviously we don't want that there. And then now, I'll get rid of that one too. Now he has a little eye. Okay, so now we have 2 eyes, and you can move these however you want them. The wired eyes I think is so stinking cool, because then you can make them like cute little antenna. I love that. We have our thread. When you start to do beading, make sure obviously that you're using a needle that is either made for beading or is like an embroidery needle that's narrow enough where the eye is to go through your beads, because it's really annoying when you get halfway through or you set it all up and then your beads won't go over the fat part of your needle, which is the eye. So we have here a very narrow, this is just a sewing needle, but I'm going to start off by going right into this edge, this seam, and pulling through. And then I'm using these like iridescent blue-green buttons, not buttons, beads, but you could use basically any corresponding bead, or even like a contrasting one could be really cool. I just really like the way that these looked with the blue-green and kind of the blue-green outside of the snail. And then I do at the top fewer, but do a couple of beads at once. It will help make this process go faster. See where they lie flat. Put a little stitch there, pull it through, and then do like 3 more beads. So we're just gonna put 5 lines of beads. By the time you get down here, you're gonna end up putting beads on a spot that's covered anyway. So we're just gonna do like 5, I think. That's kind of what I did on this guy. So we're basically gonna match that. So there's 2 down. And now we're gonna do the 3rd one. And I have noticed that about 3 beads is perfect for the distance on this like downhill. And that's my first stitch, because otherwise you're gonna have it stretched across like a bridge. And I really want this to follow the contour that we have already created. So I sew straight into that corner down there, trying to make a very shallow stitch so that we don't have a bunch of like skip in the beads. Those ones rolled up, there we go. And see how that goes down, and now we can go over. It just makes it look a lot cleaner and purposeful, and like we sewed them on one by one. So this is a longer stretch, so I'm gonna try jumping up to 4. Ta-da! 5 little beaded stripes, so cute. So now we're gonna take our skull and we're gonna open the mouth as wide as we possibly can. And then this part's a little scary because you're just like really kind of shoving all of your hard work through. And there you go. And then flatten out your seams. Place it where you want. And there you have it. We have a snail skeleton. Okay, so I know this project is a little bit out there, but truthfully, I'm really happy with how it turned out. The snails actually kind of matched the pumpkin we made yesterday on day 14, and I think they're just a really fun, super unique thing to add to your Halloween decor. You're definitely not going to find these at the store. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's project. Like, comment, subscribe, do all the things they tell you to do, and I will see you guys tomorrow for day 16. Bye.